Good evening, and welcome to our fifth group project from the Delta Group, looking at constructivism and behaviorism for our philosophy of education class. The group consists of Keelan Logan, Clint Maddox, Terry Hervey, and I'm Josh Hamilton. For this project, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at constructivism and behaviorism, and specifically how these two philosophies have changed over some times, where they got their roots, and then move on to look at how this is actually working in the classroom and try to be a little specific about the learner, the teacher, the classroom setting, etc. These two you may be more familiar with than the other philosophies that we've looked at in the past, because these are more relevant and alive in classrooms today. So to begin with, we're going to look at constructivism and versus behaviorism, and we're going to start with the idea that behaviorism has its roots embedded in day-to-day activity with discipline in the classroom. Constructivism has still risen in opposition because they have this need to address the inner human or mind. But starting with behaviorism, Skinner was a huge behaviorist voice. When we think about behaviorism in the 20th century, we have to begin to popularize the thought of genetic predispositions with environmental aspects, to nature versus nurture, this issue. And this had us explore alternatives to behavioral modifications in the classroom. And when we think about this nature versus nurture and Skinner and how behaviorism really started to begin, was we know that Skinner was really big about working with how people react in certain situations and if there were triggers for these types of things, and whether one could be nurtured versus nature in a sense of how we respond to discipline. Discipline in this behaviorism sense is still alive in our classrooms today. On the next slide, we continue to talk about this, and we're going to look at constructivism, however. Constructivism establishes no bounds on how the learner seeks out the information, so the problem is set forth. This control of learning is left solely to the individual. The teacher will guide you along the way, assist and transfer knowledge, that type of thing, but humans are looking for methods that fit this new or popular solution to nature versus nature issue. Constructivism kind of fits this popular theory. When we look at a new way of dealing with nature versus nurture, behaviorism would argue that we can be taught how to react versus the nature, and so if we're looking at this new form, constructivism fits this, where we kind of find our own way with the information, and the control of learning is left to me, the individual. So it's not so much nurture, there's nature and nurture kind of molding in constructivism this new outcome for the learner. Going to the next slide, we look at the accent on the learner. The learner is not the teacher, interacts with his or her environment and thus gains understanding of its feature. Discovery is on the student with the assistant from the teacher. Students during the search of the solution make a connection to pre-existing schematas, which in turn provide a deeper, significant understanding. We can apply this to real-world curriculum, etc. What this is essentially trying to push here is when we accent the learner, we teach the learner to find this new knowledge and discover these truths. We've seen this a lot in our other assignments with other philosophers, but when we talk about constructivism, we can see that we're trying to have the student connect into these schematas or these folders in your mind, the curriculum, to their own environment, to these pre-existing knowledge, because that in turn is going to help them remember it longer and create true learning, long-lasting knowledge. When we critique constructivism, we can first look at some advantages, and then we're going to look at some disadvantages. Right now you're looking at advantages of constructivism. In basic summary, the teacher provides a problem or guide for the students to seek out solution. The discovery is solely on the student. That's really important. The teacher is a mere facilitator and assistant. No surprise, students seek out solutions to given problems and things they're interested in. This might be physics to baseball, debate to the topic of the BCS in college football, etc. You've got to find what sparks their interest, and constructivism emphasizes this motivational approach. As previously mentioned, a student seeks out solutions in ways that are interesting to them, going to the library, interviewing, reading books. The point being, students are not just learning in the classroom, but learning how information is applied to problems for further understanding and seeking out solutions in the real world. That's one of the huge advantages in constructivism, is that we're motivating students to seek out these problems that interest them in the real world. However, with anything, there's disadvantages to your advantages. When we look at the disadvantages, we can talk about training. It's very costly, long-term. Professional development for schools, you can't really fund it's really hard to fund, as we all probably know, teacher training, especially if you want to try to train them on constructivism. Because this is new and shaping and molding, and so it's kind of difficult. Lack of customized curriculum. Obviously, you probably thought from the beginning, what would this curriculum look like? Well, it's really difficult, or sometimes maybe impossible, for a teacher to customize their curriculum to meet the needs of every student with constructivism. And then lack of accurate student evaluation. Individual grades and testing aren't stressed. That's going to lead to a possibility of some students being left behind. Sorry, George Bush, we couldn't do it with constructivism. And then we also put a little article referenced by Kalia Roberts down here at the bottom that talked about that disadvantages and advantages of constructivism. We'll go to the next slide. Behavior versus constructivism in the classroom. Behaviorism, students are passive, they're receptacle of information, we respond, behavior responses. Teachers control and regulate the environment, and the extrinsic motivation for learning is very popular, a token society. Intrinsic motivations, we give you things, homework pass, A's, things I can hold, behaviorism. Constructivism, students are the teachers of themselves. They seek out information that's meaningful to them. We as teachers are there to facilitate and assist, and students, researchers seek out the solutions. It's this intrinsic motivation. It's very big. When we motivate students to find an intrinsic motivation, they have that aha moment, and it seeks, in constructivism at least, to push students to find whatever their intrinsic motivator is, which in theory is going to work really well because intrinsically motivated students tend to want to learn the knowledge, whereas just giving them a homework pass isn't as long-term effective. On the next slide, we look at appealing characteristics of constructivism. Essentially what we're looking at here is it kind of frees students from this dreariness and this fact-driven curriculum. I have to do it because you're telling me to, etc. It allows students to look at their own interests, like we've stated several times. And it emphasizes the message that the world is complex with multiple perspectives. And so I think that's really important. I think all too often we forget to remind students how complex and multi-diverse and how there are different ways of thinking out there. We even do this as graduate students. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in a class and thought, wow, I wish everyone could look at different perspectives rather than just one. So I try to teach that way. And then finally, acknowledge learning in the process of assessing learning in an elusive endeavor that's not easily managed. What we mean by that is assessing learning in a way that's not manageable. We don't have to have this grades and this, that, and the other, this whole concept of behaviorism that's very structured and you get a token or you get a prize, right? And then so we also put the reference down there about constructivism. So when we look back, we can go on to look at how constructivism has these 4 characteristics that need to appeal to students. These characteristics should make learning much more interesting. They'll be allowed, or more interesting for students. Are no longer required to memorize or show that they've absorbed the facts given to them by a instructor. They're going to be allowed to study objects that are interesting to them and apply those concepts to real-world scenarios. So when we look back at constructivism, it is very much more the teacher assists the learner and the learner gets to navigate their way through this new material and intrinsically motivate themselves and find things that are more hands-on, important to them that they would like to work with. So that's kind of constructivism versus behaviorism, and we hope that you take away something for this that you can apply in your classroom when it comes to working with constructivism.